near the foothills of Northern California. A state of mind, if not a state in fact. This is Fireside Chats. And thanks for joining us this evening. So tonight we're going to talk about the state of Jefferson. The state of Jefferson currently is a state of mind. It's a libertarian utopia with minimal government where people, regardless of race, gender, sexual orientation, background, work, they carry their own water, they invent, they farm, they create, they love, and they live in peace. So, what is the state of Jefferson? Let's go ahead and go through the history of the prior state of Jefferson movement up through the modern movement, in which 21 California counties have already declared their independence and wish to form a separate state. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. So from Wikipedia, here we go. The state of Jefferson is a proposed U.S. state that would span the contiguous, mostly rural area of southern Oregon and northern California, where several attempts to separate from Oregon and California respectively have taken place. This region on the Pacific coast is the most famous of several that have sought to adopt the name of Thomas Jefferson, the third president of the United States. Jefferson, who sent the Lewis and Clark expedition into the Pacific Northwest in 1803, envisioned the establishment of an independent nation in the western portion of North America that he dubbed the Republic of the Pacific, hence the association of his name with regional autonomy. The independence movement, rather than statehood, is known as Cascadia. The name Jefferson has also been used for other proposed states. The name was proposed in the 19th century for Jefferson Territory, parentheses, roughly modern Colorado, end parentheses, as well as in 1915 in a bill in the Texas legislature for a proposed state that would be created from the Texas Panhandle region. If the proposal were ever approved, the new state's capital city would have to be determined by constitutional convention. Yreka, California, not to be confused with Eureka, was named the provisional capital in the original 1941 proposal, although Port Orford, Oregon, had also been set up for consideration. Some supporters of the more recent revival have also identified Redding, California, as a potential capital, even though Redding is not included in all versions of the proposal, and its city council voted in 2013 to reject participation in the movement. Moving on. My vote, by the way, would probably be Chico for the capital of Jefferson. I think Chico would be the right move. Continuing. In October of 1941, the mayor of Port Orford, Oregon, Gilbert Gable, said that although the Oregon counties of Curry, Josephine, Jackson, and Klamath should join with the California counties of Del Norte, Siskiyou, and Modoc to form a new state later named Jefferson, he was motivated by the belief that those heavily rural areas were underrepresented in state government, which tended to cater to more populous areas. On November 27, 1941, a group of young men gained national attention when, brandishing hunting rifles for dramatic effect, they stopped traffic on U.S. Route 99 south of Yreka, the county seat of Siskiyou County, and handed out copies of a Proclamation of Independence, stating that the state of Jefferson was in, quote, patriotic rebellion against the states of California and Oregon, end quote, and would continue to, quote, secede every Thursday until further notice, end quote. The state split movement ended quickly, though not before Del Norte County District Attorney John Leon Childs, 1863 to 1953, wow, that dude lived a long time, of Crescent City, was inaugurated as the governor of the state of Jefferson on December 4th, 1941. The first blow was the death of Mayor Gable on December 2nd, followed by the attack on Pearl Harbor on December 7th. Those in favor of splitting the state focused their efforts on the war effort, which crippled the movement. Funny how these rebel rousers have a funny way of ending up dead, isn't it? Continuing. San Francisco Chronicle journalist Stanton Delaplane won the 1942 Pulitzer Prize for reporting for his articles on the state of Jefferson. In 1989, KSOR, the National Public Radio member station based at the Southern Oregon University in Ashland, near Medford, rebranded itself as Jefferson Public Radio. It had built a massive network of low-powered translators earlier in the 1980s by the time KSOR began building full-power stations later in the decade. It realized that the combined footprint of its translator network was roughly coextensive with the original state of Jefferson. It thus felt Jefferson Public Radio was an appropriate name when it decided to rebrand itself as a network. In 1992, California State Assemblyman Stan Statham placed an advisory vote in 31 counties asking if the state should be split in two. All of the proposed Jefferson counties voted in favor of the split, except for Humboldt County, which did not have the issue on the ballot. Based on these results, Statham introduced legislation in California in an attempt to split the state, but the bill died in committee. In the late 1990s, the movement for statehood was promoted by a group called the State of Jefferson Citizens Committee, which was originally formed in 1941. Two of the members, Brian Hellsapple and Brian Peterson, gathered an extensive collection, including both verbal and written accounts, mostly surrounding the 1941 movement. They published a book, Jefferson Saga, in 2000. This, along with the continued lack of representation and overregulations, fanned the flame. So, yeah, it's interesting because the historic state of Jefferson movement was a California and Oregon thing, and it was really just those counties up north, far up north. It was very much a fringe thing, very much those few counties. So it's really interesting when you compare the old movement to the new movement, because there's a number of catalysts that reignited the state of Jefferson movement that it doesn't say there. So let's get into the modern state of Jefferson movement. 21st century. Jefferson is commemorated by the state of Jefferson's scenic byway between Wairika and O'Brien, Oregon, which runs 109 miles along State Route 96 and U.S. Forestry Service Primary Route 48. Near the California-Oregon border, a turnout provides scenic views of the Klamath River Valley and 3 informative display signs about the Republic. The region retains this identity, reinforced by institutions such as Jefferson Public Radio. As of the 2010 census, if the Jefferson counties were a state, the original 1941 counties that had seceded, the state's population would be 457,859, smaller than any state at the time. Approximately 82% of those residents live in Oregon. Its land area would be 21,349 square miles, a little smaller than West Virginia. The area was almost evenly divided between Oregon and California. Its population density would be 21.44 inhabitants per square mile, a little more than Idaho. With the addition of the more modern Jefferson movement, the population as of the 2010 census would be 2,313,958, making it the 36th most populous state in the United States. So now we're going to get into the meat and potatoes of who's actually declared their intent to leave California. Here are the counties that are intending to leave California. On September 3rd, 2013, the Siskiyou County, California Board of Supervisors voted 4-1 in favor of withdrawal from California to form a proposed state named Jefferson. The proposal was joined by the Modoc County Board of Supervisors on September 24th, 2013, and Glenn County Board of Supervisors on January 21st, 2014. On April 15th, 2014, Yuba County Supervisors joined the state of Jefferson movement to separate from California and create a new U.S. state. On July 15th, 2014, the Tehama County Board of Supervisors voted unanimously to adopt a resolution supporting the declaration of withdrawal from California. Based on the advisory vote taken on June 6, where public voted 56 to 44% in favor of splitting from the state. On July 22, 2014, the Board of Supervisors of Sutter County unanimously adopted a resolution supporting a declaration and petitioned to the state legislature to withdraw from California to redress a lack of representation. On March 3, 2015, Lake County Supervisors voted 3-2 to submit the question of secession to voters, and on March 17th, Lassen County Supervisors made a similar declaration. That also has the voters deciding in 2016. The Jefferson Declaration Committee is reportedly aiming to get at least 12 counties in support. On October 24, 2014, Modoc and Siskiyou counties delivered their declarations for independence from the state of California to the California Secretary of State's office. On January 15, 2015, 3 more counties, Glenn County, Tehama County, and Yuba, submitted their final official declarations as well. The 2013 revival was based almost entirely in California. It includes all major parts of California north of the 39th parallel. Although some individual residents in Oregon have lobbied for the movement, no county government in that state has endorsed the proposal to date. As of January 6, 2016, 21 Northern California counties have sent a declaration or have approved to send a declaration to the state of California with their intent of leaving the state and forming the state of Jefferson. The population of the 21 counties was 1,747,626 as of the 2010 census, which would be the 39th most populous state in the Union. So this is not getting as much press as it really should. As you can see from the map there, geographically, that's a little over a third of the state. And what began as really a fringe movement with really the 3 most northern counties, Del Norte County, Siskiyou County, and Modoc County, and the original state of Jefferson movement was primarily an Oregon thing. As of this date, April 17th, 2019, no Oregon counties have submitted a declaration, and 21 California counties have. So this is pretty serious stuff. And it was really surprising to me as a native Californian and as someone that's lived in Sacramento County, Placer County, Yuba County, and Sutter County. It was really surprising to me. I was really blown away when Yuba County and Sutter County both voted to endorse the state of Jefferson proposal. But I just my head exploded when Placer County did it. Because Placer County, if you're not familiar with California, contains quite a bit of suburbs and quite a bit of people that that work in the Sacramento area for the state, or dependent on their jobs being in that part of the state. So, for Placer County, that has larger suburban areas, that was quite a shock. And I think it tells you really how serious the problem is. And anecdotally, well, let's get into the main reason why these people want to separate from the state, and that would be this Supreme Court decision, Reynolds versus Sims. Reynolds versus Sims is a 1964 Supreme Court decision through the Earl Warren Court, which ruled 8-1 that unlike in the elections in the United States Senate, the election in any chamber of a state legislature, the election districts must be roughly equal in population. So, translation, as with the United States Constitution, there were 30 states that had bicameral houses, one based on population and one where one county, let's say, as in California, one county had one senator. So with the United States Senate, where you have 2 senators per state, California was based on the federal Constitution, as were 30 states in total, where they had a bicameral legislature with one house. We call it the Assembly in California. That's apportioned. The representatives are apportioned through population. And we had a second chamber also called the Senate, that had one senator per county. So what this 1964 United States Supreme Court decision did, and I think this is just and so did the Jeffersonians, the Jefferson supporters, believe this is a huge overreach by the Supreme Court. That it compromises, it really tramples all over the concept through our federal Constitution of dual sovereignty. That is federal sovereignty and state sovereignty. And so what the net effect of this is that it turned our bicameral House, our bicameral legislature, into basically 2 chambers where the representatives are apportioned via population rather than having the Senate, where each county is guaranteed 1 seat in the Senate. So these 21 counties under the original California Constitution had, or not the original, I think it was the 1923 Constitution. Anyway, prior to the Supreme Court decision, these 21 counties would have had 21 senators. And the way post Reynolds versus Sims, these counties have a total of 3 senators representing them in the Senate. And that's why you get gender restroom bills. That's why you get in-state tuition for illegal immigrants. That's why you get plastic bag bans. That's why you get straw bans. That's why you get sanctuary state bills. That's why you get social services for undocumented persons. That's why you get those things, because without the representation that you originally had prior to Reynolds versus Sims, the state legislature would basically not be passing a whole lot of bills. most of this stuff, you'd probably still have sanctuary cities, and you'd probably have these plastic bag bans in the cities that they are in, but they wouldn't be statewide. And also, that's the reason post Reynolds versus Sims why you have some of the gun laws that you have. So that's why that is the number one reason why the state of Jefferson proponents want to break off, have voted to break off. They have voted to break off. This is not desire. This is not wanting. They have voted. They voted to break off from the state of California. These votes have already taken place. They want to leave the state of California. They no longer want to be a part of California. They want to form their own state. And most liberals seem to espouse the view, if you talk to them about the Electoral College and things like that, that they view more representation as a good thing. So it's a little puzzling. There was a proposal, I think, to break the state into three. It met the criteria to make the state of California ballot. In the state of California, if you're not familiar, we have an initiative process where citizens can basically pass laws and amend the state constitution through what's called an initiative or ballot proposal process. And so there was a proposal that qualified. You have to get a certain number of signatures, and it has to be written in a certain way. And it qualified for the ballot. It wasn't as good, in my opinion, as the state of Jefferson proposal. But these people in the 21 counties are just like, we can't take it anymore. We've got high taxes. We've got stupid gun laws. I mean, we've got like gender restroom bills that are just, and they're saying this lacks all common sense. Business owners and individuals can figure out bathrooms. They can do that. They don't need the state doing that. And so it qualified for the ballot, and it didn't make it on the ballot. There was some chicanery going on, some shenanigans, and it didn't make it on the ballot. So I am a person that tends to think that more representation is better than less representation. And the proposed state of Jefferson, what they're looking for, it's going to be a very small government. So they want no income tax. They want to dramatically lower gas taxes. And they want to control their natural resources, of which there's a lot. Water is a big one. So I support the state of Jefferson movement. I like the idea of it's just a lot of common sense, a lot of it just the culture in these parts of the state. It's the social justice stuff that's run amok. It doesn't play well here. If you show up with that shit somewhere, it's like, okay, well, thanks for telling me that. There's no hostility, there's no anger, none of the behaviors that are ascribed. It's just like, well, okay, yeah, great. Well, thanks for telling me. Appreciate it. Yeah. What can you do? Somebody comes to apply for a job or to work somewhere, they kind of have to have a skill set and know how to do things. And the idea that it's somehow like there are rednecks or racists and those types of people. Now, granted, I have once in a while you'll get trolls, as you will anywhere, and somebody will make a comment that's inappropriate about those topics. But by and large, they just want to be left alone. And there actually are, believe it or not, in the state of Jefferson, there's LGBT people. And they're ranchers, and they have jobs, and they're more concerned with just living their lives, as are most people here. than attaching labels and saying, well, you fit into this category and you fit into that category, and because you fit into this category, you deserve this, or you need representation. They just do. They do things, and that's really refreshing. Yeah, I mean, I've met a few LGBT ranchers, and they have horses, or they have cattle, or they have sheep, or they have goats, and yeah, I mean, they care less. And if somebody else showed up that was a member of their group, well, they might want to help them out, but ultimately it comes down to, do you show up on time? Do you have a good work ethic? Those are the considerations, not the other stuff. But they have ranches, they raise horses, they raise cattle, they raise goats and everything else. Some of them have orchards. I mean, some of them foster animals, and I mean, all walks of life. So there's that. I've met African American couples that have had ranches, and they're very nice people, and they raise their horses, and they enjoy that kind of independent, rugged individualism. And I've met just here pretty much standard white folks too, and they're the same way also. There's a certain calmness, I think, that comes from having a large amount of land around you. You're not as edgy as you are. I can't really... Suburbia seems like living in an apartment complex to me now. It's really rough. And I used to think that living in a house and not living in an apartment was the biggest deal in the world. But yeah, I mean, just very nice people out here. They're just really, really relaxed, and going out of their way to discriminate or oppress someone is just like the furthest thing from their minds. I mean, when you've got acreage and you've got a huge porch and a nice view of, Cascades or the Sutter Buttes or the Coastal Range or the Sierra Nevadas, you're not caring about what's happening in, Meadowview, Sacramento. You're not caring about what's happening in the Tenderloin in San Francisco, not caring about the Mission in San Francisco, not caring about what's happening in Oakland. It's not even entering your mind. But those people seem to be having no issues telling these nice folks in the state of Jefferson how to conduct their affairs, on gun bills, these plastic bag bans, which are ridiculous. Just the nanny state run amok. And then here's another one. The state of California passed a bill where if you have a corporation in the state of California, your board must be 50% female. Like, what the hell? So it's just there's a lot of lack of common sense. And I think a really telling thing about how the cities treat the rest of the state and is our Governor Newsom recently went to El Salvador on a fact-finding mission about illegal immigration. And everybody in the state of Jefferson part of the state is basically like, yeah, dude, you can go to El Salvador, but you're not even going to bother to take like a half an hour car ride into the Central Valley to learn about immigration, the impact of immigration, and the drain on resources that can happen from immigration. Now, granted, again, I mean, most people here, there's no issue with people that are undocumented. I mean, they're not going out of their way to do anything to these people. I mean, most people are polite and they treat everyone with dignity and respect. I think most of the racists have died a long time ago. And I don't think we really have them anymore. I think we live in a new world, and this world that the SJW types live in, where, oh, you don't like me, I'm going to make you like me, instead of just like shrugging it off and just saying, oh, well, I don't want to be around people that don't like me, I'm just going to go hang out with people that do like me. So it's really confusing, and it's that state of Jefferson mindset of individualism. It's the largest minority is the individual. That is their thought process. Their thought process is that individual is amazing, and they will look at things the way I look at things, and that is that when I look back and I think of Bo Jackson playing 2 professional sports and him running vertically up a wall and catching a baseball, that takes my breath away. I think that's amazing. When I think back and I look on Michael Jordan doing his crazy jump spin slam dunks, that takes my breath away. When I see a business person like Barbara Corcoran, who's built an amazing empire, that takes my breath away. That inspires me. That gives me energy, gives me hope. It makes me feel alive. It makes me want to do better. But when I hear people complain and tear other people down and invent reasons to divide people, Cliff's Notes version, we'll call it intersectionality, because of I just I'm puzzled. I don't feel that there's a dialogue happening there. And here's the thing. And I guess this kind of ties into State of Jefferson, but we'll segue into this. I was on a Twitter battle, and somebody had picked on YouTuber Mecha Random 42. This Brie Larson fangirl got on there and started bullying Mecha Random 42, and some others started in on her. And I was like, wow, that's kind of rude. There's pretty nasty comments that they're, but it started to get a little personal. They started making rude comments that were personal attacks. And I'd made a previous video about when I did my Parker Mankey video. I said, can we reach these people? Are they reachable, or are they just insane? Should we try? And I would never forgive myself if I didn't try. So I tried to understand. And I reached out to a couple of them. I was like, well, what is your definition of diversity? What is... And I said, it's part of the problems that we have with you people, the SJWs, is, there seems to be a moving of the goalposts. And so one of them had made a comment because Mecha Random 42 had said, Monica Rambeau would have made an amazing Captain Marvel. So there were, rather than saying, yeah, Monica Rambeau would have made an amazing Captain Marvel, they said, oh, I want to see when you said that before Brie Larson was cast. And so I was like, huh? It didn't make any sense. Oh, what other representation are you into? And I'm just like, I'm trying to understand here. And I said, so I commented them. I said, this is the example of moving of the goalposts. She just said Monica Rambeau. I'm sorry, I brain farted. I think I may have gotten her name wrong. Anyway, was would have made an amazing Captain Marvel. I mean, and now you're asking for like old posts of her saying that other African American people should be. I was like, what difference does it make? And so rather than them answering my question, they blocked me. So it's just a question I want to understand. I'm not trying to make anybody feel stupid. I'm not trying to do gotcha moments. I just want to understand. And I get it, and that's one of the reasons why I like to challenge my ideas, because here's the thing. If I'm right, and I challenge my ideas, and my ideas are proven right, then that makes me feel good. If I'm challenged and I've been wrong about something, I want to stop making an ass of myself. So, if I'm proven wrong, I will change my opinion. Isn't that amazing? And that's what a mature person does. And when you look at some of the things that have been happening, it doesn't compute. People don't understand it. These protests over Stephon Clark in my hometown of Sacramento. So they had 5 investigations on this guy. The Sacramento PD investigated. The prosecutors investigated. The district attorney, I mean. The state of California investigated. The family investigated. You had nonprofit groups investigate. And it was clearly a suicide by cop scenario. He was depressed. He'd been on several different illegal drugs. He had talked about wanting the different ways that he could take his life to his fiancée. And it was obvious that it was a case of suicide by cop. Should he have lost his life for what happened? No. But we had several days of protest in Sacramento. And it just doesn't compute that someone wouldn't take personal responsibility. Now, I think they did the right thing by having all those investigations. But the conclusion is clear. It was suicide by cop. That's what it was. This wasn't a Philando Castile situation, which where the cop panicked and the man was a CCW holder. He informed the cop that he was a CCW holder, and the cop panicked and blew the guy away. That Philando Castile thing really makes me want to puke my guts out, because he seemed like a good man that was part of the solution to a lot of the problems in his community. But moving on, I mean, that's where it is. I think that these SJWs, I think they have this narrow worldview. I think they move the goalposts because they want to be victims. I don't think they want to be empowered. I think that because here's the thing with empowerment. And I went through this process. It's easier to blame other people. You know, for me personally, it's easier to blame a broken home. It's easier to blame a drug addict father. It's easier to blame having a drug addict brother. It's easier to blame on those things. And certainly they were factors that formed me. There were negative things and there were positive things. But I'll tell you what, having that shit happen in your life makes you tough. And I went through in my early adulthood, some really rough stuff. And 2 of my peers didn't make it. One was clearly a suicide, and the other I suspect was either a suicide or a case of a severe case of the fuckets, and ended up dead. And that solution never occurred to me. And they both came from a house where mom and dad were together. And they seemed to have it all. They were both popular. I was not popular. And so, it was easy to blame them, and I can blame them for some bad things and for some misery and for some unhappy times. But every fuck up that I did after the age of 18, I own that shit. That was me. I didn't have to make those mistakes. I didn't have to go street racing and fuck my car up. I didn't have to drink like a fish and get a DUI. I didn't have to, not be patient when it came to waiting for not getting a promotion that I thought I was due and blowing up any chance of having any advancement at that place and having a horrible temper. That was all me. So there's a saying, you are the problem, you are the solution. And while it's easier to say the world's fucked, if the objective is to fix problems, let's look at this objectively. Try to fix the world, make people like you, make people hire you, or you can fix yourself. So change the entire world or fix yourself. Showing up on time doesn't cost anything. Consistent attendance doesn't cost anything. Reading books at the library doesn't cost anything. You are the problem. You are the solution. And I think it goes back to the state of Jefferson here on a lot of the differing viewpoints that we have between these 21 counties and the rest of the state. So, is it the whole system fucked and we need to blow it up, or is it we just need to correct these issues and let the people take care of it? So, I support the state of Jefferson movement. I think it's the right way to go. In my libertarian paradise, in my state of Jefferson, in the state of my mind, you have a part-time legislature. Provided Reynolds and Sims isn't overturned, you have a unicameral House based on population. You have a governor that gets a single 6-year term. You have the county boards of supervisors. If a majority of them vote something down after a bill has been passed and signed by the governor, it will be nullified. There will be no Department of Transportation. There will be no DMV. These functions will be block granted to the counties, and the counties will administer them in any way they see fit. In a place like a Placer County, you will probably have extremely nice facilities. Most decisions will be made on the individual and local level. In my libertarian paradise, state of Jefferson, there will be a state-chartered central bank, similar to the Bank of North Dakota. This bank will invest in finance and finance infrastructure and give very low cost loans for any qualifying person that gets an education and for infrastructure, and to the counties. Anyone that wants to become a civil engineer or a computer engineer, or an engineer in general, will get a free ride from the state of Jefferson. We are not turning out enough engineers. This convoluted system that we have of education in the state of California will be done in the state of Jefferson. There will be competition. There will be competition, and some schools can align themselves with whatever version of the CSU or USC system remains in the state of Jefferson. There will be charter schools, private schools, and there will be scholarships available so that you can move schools if you wish. There will be specialization among schools. Some will specialize in trades, vocations, apprenticeships. Some will specialize in academics. Some mathematics. Some science. It will not be a centralized system. It will be based on competition. So if one county does it better than the other, that county will attract people, and the other counties will have to catch up if they want to attract people to that county. So, yeah, regarding the central bank of the state of Jefferson, I think it's prudent to look at William Still's work. That's Bill Still. Look him up on YouTube. Bill Still. He did the Secrets of Oz and, oh God, it's drawing a blank on it. But he does a lot about monetary policy and the history of money, things like that. So I think the state of Jefferson, it would be prudent to have a large gold bullion depository. Having a state central bank right now, pretty much all banks operate through the Federal Reserve System, and having a state bank, and this has been in the news because the hippy dippies want a state chartered bank for intrastate commerce regarding marijuana transactions. Well, this bank would be for any intrastate commerce, because the Constitution has the Commerce Clause, and one of the ways that the federal government encroaches on the state's sovereignty is through the Commerce Clause and through the Federal Reserve System, which I'm going to end the Feder if anybody's curious. And so by having intrastate commerce go through this central state chartered bank, you break off a lot of rules and regulations that you would have from the federal government. So I would support having. I think it's really needed. I think it's needed to chip away a big block of freedom from the federal government, and that's one of the things that I think a state of Jefferson could achieve. But what do you think about the state of Jefferson? I'd like to know. I think that's enough for my soapbox. My allergies are killing me. I can't even believe I got through this webcast. I need to go down. I mean, they're not as bad as they used to be, but I need to get some local raw organic honey and have some tea and honey because pretty rough right now. So from the beautiful state of Jefferson, near the foothills of Northern California, a state of mind, if not a state in fact. This has been Fireside Chats. See ya.